911, what's your emergency? There's been an accident. A man, he's bleeding badly on Fifth Avenue near the park. He tried to save a puppy and got hit by a car. The frantic voice crackled through the phone as sirens wailed in the distance. Blood pooled on the wet asphalt around 42-year-old Daniel Harrison, a tech billionaire whose morning jog had just taken a devastating turn. His designer running shoes were torn, his breathing shallow, and his phone lay shattered beside him, the same phone that had been buzzing with million-dollar deals just minutes before. "Sir, can you hear me? Stay with us!" The paramedic's voice cut through the chaos as they loaded him onto the stretcher. The small golden retriever puppy he'd risked his life to save whimpered nearby, unharmed but trembling. If you're already feeling the tension, hit that like button, because this story is just getting started and you won't believe what happens next. Daniel's eyes fluttered open in the sterile hospital room 12 hours later. The beeping machines around him painted a grim picture. He was alive, but barely. Dr. Sarah Martinez approached his bedside with a grave expression that made his heart monitor spike. "Mr. Harrison, you've lost a dangerous amount of blood. We need to perform an emergency transfusion, but—" She paused, checking her clipboard. "You have AB negative blood type. It's extremely rare. Only 0.6% of the population has it. We've contacted every blood bank in the state, but what?" Daniel croaked, his throat dry as sandpaper. "We're running out of time. We have maybe 6 hours to find a compatible donor, or—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Meanwhile, just 3 floors below in the pediatric wing, something extraordinary was happening. 2 3-year-old twins, Emma and Lily, sat in the children's waiting area with Mrs. Rodriguez, a social worker who had been trying to place them in foster care for weeks. Their mother, Isabella, had been admitted to the same hospital earlier that morning. Not from an accident, but from a severe overdose that had finally forced the state to remove the children from her care. "Why can't we see Mommy?" Emma asked, her small hand gripping her sister's. "Sweetie, Mommy is very sick right now. The doctors are helping her get better," Mrs. Rodriguez explained gently, though she knew the truth was far more complicated. Isabella was in the psychiatric ward, and the twins were about to be separated. Different foster families had agreed to take 1 child each, but not both together. As if sensing her sister's distress, Lily suddenly stood up and tugged on Mrs. Rodriguez's sleeve. "My grandma used to say, 'I have magic blood,'" she whispered with the innocent certainty only a child could possess. "She said it could help anybody who was hurt really bad." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled sadly, thinking it was just childhood imagination. But what she didn't know was that Lily's grandmother had been right. Both twins carried the same rare AB negative blood type that was keeping doctors 3 floors above frantically searching for a donor. The next morning brought chaos. Dr. Sarah Martinez rushed through the hospital corridors, her coffee growing cold in her hand as she reviewed Daniel's deteriorating vitals. They'd found 1 unit of AB negative blood from a donor in Seattle, but it wouldn't arrive for another 4 hours. Time Daniel didn't have. "Doctor!" Nurse Jennifer called out from the pediatric wing. "There's something you need to see down here." "What, doctor?" Sarah Martinez discovered in the children's waiting area would change everything. Mrs. Rodriguez was filling out paperwork, while the twins played quietly with worn-out toys from the hospital's donation box. But it wasn't the scene that caught the doctor's attention. It was the medical bracelet on little Lily's wrist, a precautionary measure from a previous hospital visit. "AB negative," Dr. Sarah Martinez read aloud, her heart racing. "What did you say?" Mrs. Rodriguez looked up from her paperwork. "This child, she has AB negative blood type, the same type we desperately need upstairs." But before anyone could process what this meant, little Emma stood up with tears in her eyes. "Are you going to take our blood away?" she asked, having overheard fragments of adult conversation she couldn't fully understand. "Mommy always said bad people want to take things from us." The room fell silent. Here were 2 children who had already lost everything, their mother, their home, their sense of security, and now adults were talking about taking something from their bodies. Dr. Sarah Martinez knelt down to Emma's level. "Sweetheart, we would never take anything from you, but there's a man upstairs who is very, very sick, and sometimes people can share a little bit of their blood to help someone get better. It doesn't hurt, and it grows back." Lily stepped forward, her chin raised with determination that seemed far too mature for her age. "Is he going to die if we don't help?" The adults exchanged glances. How do you explain life and death to a 3-year-old? "He might," Dr. Sarah Martinez answered honestly. Without hesitation, Lily rolled up her tiny sleeve. "Then take some of my magic blood. Grandma said it's supposed to help people." The blood donation process was quick and carefully monitored. Lily sat bravely in the pediatric chair, holding Emma's hand, while the medical team collected just enough blood to potentially save Daniel's life. The twins didn't understand the medical complexity of what was happening, but they understood something more important. Someone needed help, and they could provide it. 2 hours later, Daniel Harrison opened his eyes to see sunlight streaming through his hospital window for the first time in days. The color had returned to his face, and the monitors around him showed stable, healthy vitals. The transfusion was successful, Dr. Sarah Martinez informed him with a smile. "You're going to make a full recovery." "Who was the donor?" Daniel asked, struggling to sit up. "I need to thank them." Dr. Sarah Martinez hesitated. "Mr. Harrison, your donor was unusual. She's 3 years old." Daniel's expression changed completely. A child had saved his life, a child who didn't even know him, who had no reason to help a stranger, who had probably been scared and confused by the entire process. "I need to meet her," he said firmly. "That might not be possible right now. The children are in a complicated situation." But Daniel Harrison hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by accepting "not possible" as an answer. By that afternoon, he had learned the entire story. 2 sisters with nowhere to go, a mother fighting addiction, and a system that was about to separate them forever because no family wanted to adopt both children together. When Daniel finally made his way down to the pediatric wing, using a wheelchair despite his protests, he found the twins exactly where Dr. Sarah Martinez had said they'd be, in the small playroom, sitting close together while social workers made phone calls about their future. Emma saw him first and nudged her sister. "That's the man you helped," she whispered. Lily looked up with curious eyes. "Are you better now?" Daniel felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been locked away since his own daughter had passed away from leukemia 2 years ago. These children, who had every reason to be bitter and afraid, were asking about his well-being with genuine concern. "I'm better because of you," he told Lily, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved my life." "My grandma was right about the magic blood," Lily said proudly. But Emma was studying Daniel with the perceptive gaze that children who've experienced trauma often develop too early. "Why are you crying?" she asked. Daniel wiped his eyes, not realizing tears had started falling. "Because I had forgotten what it felt like when someone cares about you." What Daniel learned next shattered something inside him that he hadn't even known was broken. The twins' mother, Isabella, was 26 years old and had been battling heroin addiction since she was 18. She'd lost her job, her apartment, and now her children. The state had determined she was unfit to be a parent, and the twins were being placed in foster care, separately. "Why separately?" Daniel demanded when Mrs. Rodriguez explained the situation. "Foster families are hard to find, Mr. Harrison. Most people want babies, not toddlers, and very few families are willing to take on 2 children at once, especially siblings who've experienced trauma. The emotional and financial commitment is just too much for most people." Daniel thought about his empty mansion in the hills, with its unused bedrooms and echoing hallways. After his daughter Emily, coincidentally sharing a similar name as one of the twins, had died, he and his wife had divorced. She couldn't bear to be in the same house, around the same memories. He'd thrown himself into work, building his company into an empire, while his personal life crumbled into nothing. What if someone wanted to adopt both of them? He asked quietly. Mrs. Rodriguez studied his face carefully. Mr. Harrison, adoption is a complex process. There are background checks, home studies, psychological evaluations. It can take years, and there's no guarantee. But what if someone was willing to do whatever it takes? That evening, Daniel sat alone in his hospital room, staring out the window at the city lights below. His phone buzzed constantly with business calls he ignored. For the first time in 2 years, work seemed completely irrelevant. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Doctor, Sarah Martinez entered with an unusual expression on her face. Mr. Harrison, we've had an unexpected development, she said. The twins' mother, Isabella, has asked to see you. Me? Why? She knows what her daughter did for you. She wants to thank you and ask you something. 20 minutes later, Daniel found himself in the psychiatric ward's visiting room, face to face with a young woman who looked far older than her 26 years. Isabella's hands shook slightly, not from nerves, but from withdrawal, and her eyes held a depth of pain that Daniel recognized from his own mirror. My baby saved you, she said without preamble, her voice hoarse. Your daughter saved me, Daniel confirmed. Both of them, actually. Lily gave the blood, but Emma gave me something else. What? Hope. Isabella's composure cracked. They're going to separate them. Different families. They've never been apart, not even for a night. Emma has nightmares when Lily isn't right next to her. And Lily, she's been taking care of everyone since she could walk. Taking care of me when I was too high to function. Taking care of her sister when I wasn't there at all. The admission hung between them like a confession. I know what you're thinking, Isabella continued, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. What kind of mother lets her babies take care of her? What kind of person chooses drugs over her own children? Daniel leaned forward. I'm thinking you're in pain, and I'm thinking you love them more than anything, or you wouldn't be here asking a stranger to help. The social worker said you asked about adopting them. Both of them. I did. Why? You don't know us. You don't know what they've been through, what kind of baggage they're carrying. Emma still wets the bed when she's scared. Lily hoards food under her pillow because she's afraid we'll run out again. They've seen me unconscious. They've seen police at our door. They've seen things no child should ever see. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. 2 years ago, I lost my daughter to leukemia. She was 5. My wife and I, we couldn't handle it. We fell apart. I buried myself in work. She moved across the country. I convinced myself that love was just another form of pain, that caring about someone was just setting yourself up for loss. So why would you want to go through that again? Because your daughter reminded me that some things are worth the risk. When she rolled up her sleeve to save a complete stranger, she wasn't thinking about what she might lose. She was thinking about what she could give. Isabella stared at him with an expression he couldn't read. You really want them? Both of them? I want to try. If you'll let me. And if I get clean, if I get my life together, what happens then? This was the question Daniel had been dreading because he knew the answer revealed something complicated about his own motives. Was he trying to save these children, or was he trying to save himself? Then we figure it out together, he said finally. These girls need stability right now. They need to know they're safe and they're not going to be separated. But they also need to know their mother loves them. Those aren't contradictory things. The next 3 months passed like a whirlwind of paperwork, home inspections and court hearings. Daniel hired the best family attorneys money could buy, but more importantly, he hired child psychologists, trauma specialists, and experienced nannies to help him understand what Emma and Lily would need. His mansion was transformed. The cold, minimalist spaces were filled with colorful furniture, art supplies, and toys. He had a playground installed in the backyard and converted his unused gym into a play area with soft mats and climbing structures. But the most important transformation was happening in Daniel himself. The man who once worked 18-hour days now left his office at 3 p.m. to pick up the twins from their temporary placement. The man who had eaten most of his meals at business dinners now learned to cook simple foods that children would actually eat. Emma and Lily visited his house twice a week during the transition period, always together, always holding hands when they first walked through the front door. "It's so big," Emma whispered during their first visit, her voice echoing in the foyer. "Too big," Lily agreed. "Where do all the people live?" "What people?" Daniel asked, kneeling down to their level. "The other kids. In big houses, there's always lots of kids." Daniel realized they had no frame of reference for a single family living in such a large space. Their entire world had been cramped apartments and crowded shelters. "It's just going to be me and you two," he explained. "But that means you each get your own bedroom, and there's plenty of space to run around." "Our own rooms." Emma's eyes went wide. "But what if I have scary dreams? Then you can come find me, or you can go be with your sister, whatever makes you feel safe." As the weeks passed, Daniel watched the twins slowly begin to trust that this new situation might be permanent. Lily stopped hoarding crackers from snack time. Emma began sleeping through the night. They both started calling him Uncle Daniel, which felt more natural than Mr. Harrison. But the real test came on a rainy Thursday evening when Daniel received a call that would change everything again. "Mr. Harrison," Mrs. Rodriguez's voice was tight with urgency. "I need you to come to the hospital immediately. It's Isabella." Daniel's heart sank. Another overdose, another setback, another disappointment for two little girls who had already experienced too much loss. But when he arrived at the hospital, he found something completely unexpected. Isabella was in the emergency room, but she wasn't there as a patient. She was there as a witness. A drunk driver had crashed into the rehabilitation center where she'd been living for the past 2 months, and she'd helped pull 3 people from the wreckage before the building caught fire. "She's a hero," the paramedic told Daniel, "risked her own life to save others. She's got some smoke inhalation and a few burns on her hands, but she's going to be fine." When Daniel was finally allowed to see her, Isabella looked different. Her eyes were clear, her hands steady, and despite the bandages and hospital gown, she carried herself with a dignity he hadn't seen before. "I've been clean for 62 days, she said before he could speak. "I heard about what you did tonight. The twins would be proud. I want to see them." This was the moment Daniel had been both hoping for and dreading. In 3 months, he'd fallen completely in love with Emma and Lily. They'd healed something broken inside him, given him purpose and joy he'd forgotten was possible. The thought of losing them was terrifying. But as he looked at Isabella, really looked at her, he saw a mother fighting to reclaim her life. "They miss you," he admitted. "Emma still talks about your bedtime stories. Lily saves drawings for you." Isabella's face crumpled. "Do they hate me?" "They're 3 years old, Isabella. They don't understand hate. They understand love, and they understand loss, and they understand that their mommy is gone, but they don't understand why. How do I explain addiction to a 3-year-old? Daniel thought about his own daughter, about the conversations he'd had with her about her illness, about dying, about things that were too big and complex for a child's mind to fully grasp. You tell them the truth, but in words they can understand. You tell them that sometimes grown-ups get sick in ways that make them do things that hurt the people they love. You tell them you're getting better, and you show them through your actions that you're the mommy they remember. The reunion took place in Daniel's living room on a Saturday afternoon. He'd asked Mrs. Rodriguez to be present, along with the twins' therapist, Dr. Kim. Emma and Lily had been nervous all morning, changing clothes 3 times and asking repeatedly when Mommy was coming. When Isabella walked through the front door, both girls froze. It had been 4 months since they'd seen her, and in child time that was an eternity. "Hi, babies," Isabella said softly, sitting down on the floor so she'd be at their eye level. Emma hid behind Daniel's legs, but Lily took a tentative step forward. "Are you all better now, Mommy?" "I'm getting better every day. I'm sorry I was sick for so long. Uncle Daniel was sick too, but I gave him my magic blood and he got better fast. Isabella's eyes met Daniel's over Lily's head. I heard about that. You were very brave. Emma was brave too. She held my hand the whole time. Finally, Emma emerged from behind Daniel and walked slowly toward her mother. Are you going to take us away from Uncle Daniel? The question hung in the air like a sword. This was the fear that had been growing in Daniel's chest for weeks, that healing Isabella's relationship with her daughters meant losing them himself. But Isabella's answer surprised everyone. Uncle Daniel has been taking very good care of you, hasn't he? Both girls nodded. And you like living in his big house? Another nod. Then maybe we can figure out a way for all of us to be happy. Maybe sometimes you can be with me, and sometimes you can be with Uncle Daniel, and sometimes we can all be together. Emma looked confused. Like a big family? Something like that. Dr. Kim had warned everyone that this moment would be emotionally complex. The twins had formed attachments to Daniel, but their bond with their biological mother was irreplaceable. Rather than forcing them to choose, the adults needed to find a way to honor both relationships. Over the next several hours, something beautiful began to unfold. Isabella told stories about the twins' early years that Daniel had never heard. Daniel showed Isabella the bedrooms he'd prepared, the playground in the backyard, the art projects the girls had created. The twins slowly warmed up to having both adults in the same space, eventually sitting between them on the couch while they all watched a children's movie. "Can Mommy stay for dinner?" Lily asked as the afternoon stretched into evening. Daniel looked at Isabella, who looked back with an expression of hope and gratitude. "I think that would be nice," he said. As Isabella helped the twins wash their hands before dinner, Daniel stepped outside onto his back patio. The sun was setting over the hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. His phone buzzed with work emails he had no intention of answering. 6 months ago, he'd been a man with everything money could buy and nothing that really mattered. He'd saved a puppy and nearly died in the process. But that moment of selflessness had led him to 2 little girls who'd saved his life in ways that had nothing to do with blood transfusions. "Uncle Daniel," Emma appeared at the sliding door. "Mummy wants to know if you like spaghetti." "I love spaghetti," he said, following her back inside. "Good, because Lily is making a big mess with the noodles." Indeed, the kitchen was chaos. Lily had somehow managed to get tomato sauce in her hair. Isabella was laughing while trying to clean it up, and Emma was carefully setting the table with an intensity that suggested this dinner was the most important event in the world. As they sat down to eat, Daniel realized this was what he'd been missing for the past 2 years. Not just the noise and mess of children, but the sense of being part of something bigger than himself. "Uncle Daniel," Lily said between bites of spaghetti, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." She leaned over and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I think my magic blood made you part of our family." Daniel felt his eyes fill with tears for the second time since meeting these extraordinary children. 1 year later, the unconventional family had found their rhythm. Isabella had completed her rehabilitation program and was working as a counselor at the same center that had saved her life. She had her own small apartment now, just 15 minutes from Daniel's house, and the twins spent weekends with her. But the most beautiful part wasn't the logistics they'd worked out. It was watching Emma and Lily thrive in an environment where they felt truly secure. Emma's nightmares had stopped completely. Lily no longer hoarded food or felt responsible for taking care of everyone around her. They were finally allowed to be children. Daniel had changed too. His company still thrived, but he'd learned to delegate more, to be present for school plays and bedtime stories and lazy Saturday morning pancakes. He'd discovered that success wasn't measured in stock prices or quarterly reports, but in the sound of children laughing in his house, in tiny arms wrapped around his neck before sleep, in being called Uncle Daniel by 2 little girls who had taught him that love multiplies when you share it. On this particular evening, as autumn painted the hills in shades of gold and crimson, all four of them sat in Daniel's backyard. The twins were showing Isabella the treehouse that Daniel had built while he grilled vegetables for dinner. "Uncle Daniel," Emma called from the treehouse, "can you tell Mommy about the time we saved the baby birds?" "You tell her," Daniel called back. "It's your story." As Emma launched into an animated retelling of how they'd rescued fallen baby birds and nursed them back to health, Daniel watched Isabella's face light up with pride and joy. These were the moments she'd been fighting for during the darkest days of her addiction. Not just to be clean, but to be present for her daughter's stories, their discoveries, their growing up. "You know," Isabella said quietly, joining Daniel by the grill, "I used to think that loving someone meant never letting them go. I held on to those girls so tightly, even when I was destroying all of our lives. And now I know that sometimes loving someone means creating space for them to be loved by others too. You didn't take them from me, Daniel. You gave them a foundation stable enough that they could still love me without fear." As if to prove her point, both twins came running over, Emma grabbing Isabella's hand while Lily threw her arms around Daniel's waist. "Group hug," Lily announced, and suddenly all four of them were wrapped in an embrace that felt like the most natural thing in the world. Later that night, after Isabella had gone home and the twins were asleep in their beds, Daniel stood in his kitchen cleaning dishes and marveling at how different his life looked now. The house that had once felt like a mausoleum was now filled with children's artwork, family photos, and the comfortable chaos of daily life. His phone rang, a business call he would have taken immediately just 2 years ago. Tonight he let it go to voicemail. Instead, he walked upstairs to check on the girls one last time. Emma was curled up with her favorite stuffed elephant, sleeping peacefully. In the next room, Lily had kicked off her covers and was sprawled across the bed like a starfish. As Daniel pulled the blanket back over her, Lily's eyes fluttered open. "Uncle Daniel." "Yes, sweetheart." "Do you think my magic blood is why we all found each other?" Daniel smiled in the darkness. "I think your magic blood is just one of many magical things about you. But yes, I think it brought us together." "Good," she mumbled, already drifting back to sleep. "Because I like our family." "Me too, Lily. Me too." As Daniel turned off the lights and headed to his own room, he reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them all together. A moment of compassion, stopping to save a puppy, had nearly cost him his life, but it had ultimately given him something far more valuable: a purpose, a family, and the understanding that sometimes the most broken people can heal each other simply by showing up with open hearts. The accident that had started it all seemed like a lifetime ago. The man who had woken up in that hospital bed, alone and empty despite his material success, was gone. In his place was someone who understood that true wealth couldn't be measured in bank accounts or business acquisitions, but in bedtime stories and scraped knees kissed better, in drawings hung on refrigerators and small hands slipped trustingly into larger ones. Outside, the city glittered with its millions of lights, each one representing a life, a story, a family trying to find their way in the world. But inside this house, in this moment, 4 people who had started as strangers had become something extraordinary. Proof that love doesn't always follow traditional paths, that families can be built from the most unlikely circumstances, and that sometimes a 3-year-old's faith in magic blood can work miracles that have nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with the mysterious alchemy of human connection. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember that even in our darkest moments, unexpected angels might appear. And don't forget to subscribe, because every week we bring you real stories that prove love, hope, and human kindness can triumph over any obstacle. Sometimes the most beautiful families aren't born. They're chosen, they're fought for, and they're held together by something far stronger than blood: the decision to show up for each other, no matter what.